This is Eric Rutan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew McKay Smith.
G'day everybody, hope you're well. I've got an episode to share with you that I've been looking forward to doing so for many years. This one features a conversation with the very legendary Shane Embury from Napalm Death. Now, the catalyst for the conversation is due to an Australian tour that's happening throughout September 2023. If you're local, do check gig guides for that one. I should say that they're touring with Wormrot as well, so it's another reason to go along to the shows if you're local. Now, importantly, in this conversation here, we touch on many subjects that are all wrapped up in the legacy of Napalm Death and Shane's involvement in extreme metal. So too many topics of conversation to talk about in the introduction here, but yeah, this conversation is well worth listening to. In addition to topics to do with work-life balance and family, it was really interesting to hear Shane's thoughts on that topic there. So a very well-rounded chat to share with you. Here he is, the great Shane Embury. Here he is. How are you, mate?
Good, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, not bad. Thanks for taking the time out to talk to us indie journo types. You know we appreciate it.
That's all good, man. All good.
Yeah.
No problem.
How's the, do you enjoy doing this sort of thing? These sort of Zoomers and stuff?
You know what, mate? I took it. Funny enough, during when the album came out, we're in the pandemic, and like many people, I don't know, I was having a strange time, dealing with being at home so much at that point. Anyway, and I didn't really do much press for Throws because it was kind of, I felt like lyrically, thematically, it was Barney's trip, and I sort of. So, and it's always sometimes a bit difficult when people say, okay, what's the lyrics about? And of course, but you didn't completely write them, so I sort of took a break. But then having that break and doing whatever the hell I do musically, I suppose, it's given me a bit of a, I don't know what you call it. You take a break and you go, all right, now I'm ready to talk about stuff. Not that I'm, am I saying anything that's that important? I hope so, who knows? But it's just like, you like to feel, sometimes you can get a bit like, overwhelmed by because we just I at the time just done like so many songs musically, and it was I was kind of drained from that, and I thought, well, it's your turn in a way, But it's been good today. Today's been fun. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, you've been doing this as long as anybody in extreme metal, okay? So do you find that the quality of journalism, I mean, I am a journalist, I went to uni and became a journalist, and so hopefully that comes across during our chat, but I've got to say I've listened to some of the chats that you've been a part of, and I don't think people take the time out to listen to other interviews to ask you uniquely interesting questions at times, and it's not just you, it's Barney too, and Bill Steer and all of the guys that have had such a rich and steeped history in this genre here, but do you find that?
Sometimes, you can have one. I suppose you can have one interview where you're really getting, and it will depend, of course, on you yourself and how you feel that day. But sometimes when you're faced with interviews where there's been no research at all, it puts you in a situation where you go, I don't want to be cheeky here, but how do I answer this really, or whatever? So but of course, but also I realise that sometimes they're just starting or they're young or whatever, and I mean, likewise, am I saying? Hopefully, I'm saying something that's okay. I mean, you can feel really good at doing an interview, and the next one you can be complete bollocks at it. So it's just like, I don't know. That could be like me as well. But there you go. But yeah, it's especially when you do a lot per day, I suppose.
Yeah, they build up.
It's hard to snap out of an interview. My wife always gives me a hard time. She's like, "You're not in a bloody interview now." And I'm like, "That's right, I'm not." Snap, done. Reality.
So, speaking of family and friends, I hope you don't mind me asking a question, but how's Barker going?
He's doing better now. Doing a lot better. He did a tour in the States last year. Napalm Death and grew here, and he was not in a great way at all. And I don't. That's not. I'm not at liberty to say it's too much. I suppose. Well, actually, probably no. I think no, probably. But I've had a bit of a weird time myself, but not to that degree, I guess. My mum passed away, and all, and I was just trying to deal with that. And after about 10 years of not drinking, I started drinking on tour again. God knows why. And realised that all of a sudden this thing called anxiety was there, So of course Nick comes on tour, and I thought it really pummeled me. It was one extra thing of not extra thing, but one. You realise you're getting old, and the magnitude of doing what you do, and we were ragers, we didn't take it easy in our lives, and it's how you navigate the remainder of your life is the thing. But he's doing a lot better, which is good. My family are away visiting my kids' grandparents in Japan at the moment, so I'm going to hopefully go down and see him. I saw him a few weeks back. He looked a lot better, losing a bit of weight. That's brilliant. So I might actually, the Bloodstock Festival's in a couple of weeks' time, so I might hopefully catch up with him there. But he's only about an hour away where he lives from me. But he's doing better, which is important,
Yeah, fantastic news, and God bless to the poor bloke too. Yeah, I know. I think it's look, we all pitched in, meaning all of us fans pitched in, and when the GoFundMe or whatever it was came out there, it's really important. I mean, it's not like musicians have insurance in the same way that us regular working blokes do, is it?
No, I think you sort of. He probably wouldn't say this because I know what he's like. He wrestled with the whole concept of it, I suppose, at first, but he needs some help, and I'm happy that it's going well for him, and me and him are like brothers. We argue like brothers, we're very similar in some ways, but we love each other, and so I'm glad that he's doing a lot better, because last year I was very worried about him,
Yeah, same here. Look, I've had a couple of email interactions with him, and I've spoken to him obviously on the show as well, and I got to know him there a little bit. But after losing Stuart Anstice last year, I thought, fucking hell, excuse my language, but God, if we lose Nick this time around, there's two of that classic Cradle of Filth lineup that, God help me for talking like this about Nick, that he might not be here. He's a strong bastard, we know that, but, having kidney failure like that, it's he's certainly facing an uphill battle either way.
Well, I think he's through the strength of his children. That he's realised that, and we were trying to say that like last year. It was like Nick, it's like we've all led crazy lives. We pride, and we live that kind of metal sort of lifestyle, I suppose, whatever you want to call it. And it's what you do now is where you go from here, and he's doing better, and that's a good thing. And he seemed more. He looked way 100% better when I saw him. So, and you just don't know, and you get to this particular age. I mean, I remember my dad, completely unrelated. His friends pass away, and we live in this time as you get older. Dealing with death and things like that, and it's an inevitable part of life, But I think he is a strong fucker. Excuse the language, you know what I mean? So he'll be here, I think, for a good time yet.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, you guys have still got to write a lot of music together. And talking about the music, I mean, the reason that we've got this opportunity, this catalyst to have a chat. I've really been looking forward to this chat for decades too, Shane. I'm a bassist and I've been writing to extreme metal ever since those mid-90s years, being 45, and Inside the Torn Apart and Diatribes. I mean, they were the albums. That's my era from you guys. That's my entry point. And I still enjoy those albums, by the way. But talking about eras, because you do have 4 or 5 spread across the band's catalogue, will you be focusing on any particular era during these shows in Australia that are coming up?
There's a good mixture. It's very difficult, given the sort of set length we do, which is around 70 minutes, I suppose, of trying to squeeze it all in. But it is a good cross section of something from Words. We got something from Inside the Torn Apart. And some Diatribes for sure, mixed in with the Scum, Harmony, corruption, and that some stuff about quite a bit from the last record, I guess, and the mini album. But there's a good mixture, I hope. It's very difficult as the years go on to sort of pick that set list. And of course, Australia, of course, we only come down every so often, which is that thing, But hopefully it'll tick the boxes, I hope.
Yeah, I'm sure it will, mate. Yeah, I've seen the more recent live videos, mate. And you guys are just as ferocious as ever. I don't know how you guys do it, where you get your bloody energy from. Must be the bananas you're eating or something.
Well, we sometimes you can be traveling all day, so that 1 hour is your chance to use some energy somewhere. So you tend to just go for it. It's probably the frustration of being stuck in a bloody van for 10 hours driving from one country to the next. But so that can become can be a little bit overbearing. But then the gig is like a release. You're let out of the box. You go.
Yeah. I'll sort of take the conversation in a few different places, if that's okay. I had a chat to Barney a couple of years ago, and we got into the topic of harmony corruption. Do you agree with him in that taking the band to Morrisound, that was certainly not a misstep, but maybe the band should have stayed in Britain and got a more grind-oriented producer rather than going for that Morris sound on that album?
Well, what can you say? I mean, the result of doing that record was that the old school fans kind of like felt we'd changed or sold out, and then we also gained so many more fans. I don't look at the steps of what we did as mistakes at all, because when you're in the midst of it and you're young or whatever, you like to think you're following your heart. I mean, I can't remember whose idea it really was. It might have been Mickey's. It might have been Dick from Earaches. We all loved death metal. I mean, Barney, more so than probably anyone, really loved death metal. Loved the Florida bands. We were all vibing on it. Barn has a vocal style in those early days very similar to Cam Lee from Massacre a little bit, in my opinion.
Definitely.
And we felt it was a move to do. Also, I was looking forward to hanging out in Florida and watching a lot of my favourite bands rehearse. So I love the experience myself. I just remember me, Jesse, and Mitch driving around a hired car, blasting out Public Enemy. I'd never been to the stage before. It was great, and crashing on bloody Morbid Angel's couch and going to see Obituary rehearse, Atheist. We did one show there. I think did we play with Atheist and Nocturnus? Amazing, And Scott Burns is an amazingly lovely guy, He had his style, and we did it. Musically, it was mostly written by Mickey on his 2-string guitar. God bless him. But I mean, he also wrote a lot of stuff on Mentally Murdered. If it had sounded like Mentally Murdered, people probably wouldn't have batted an eyelid. But I don't regret it. I loved it. It was great,
Well, you mentioned a few people in there, but one of the blokes that I always love having this conversation, or at least asking the question about Dig and Earache, because I'm sure you're aware that he's not on the Christmas card list of a lot of bands that have been with Earache. So what's your take on the Digby experience?
I've known Dig since when did I first meet Dig? I think I met Dig at did I know him before? I met him in March '86. The Mermaid, when I first saw Napalm Death, and spent many time. I mean, I used to do mail outs for him, before he moved to proper offices, and I've also done a record label short for a small period of time. And I know how much of a pain in the ass bands can be. Dig, of course, he's not everyone's favorite person, really, but I can only imagine dealing with dealing with some bands can be, but lately I've bumped into him. We say hello, we have a chat, and that's kind of it. I've moved on. I haven't anything particularly bad, really, to say about that relationship, because it also, certainly in the early years of Napalm, I mean, it was quite an innovative record label,
Yeah.
I think, but Yeah, I mean, I don't have any feelings either way, really. I'm too interested in trying to move on through life, really, and leave it at that, I guess. We're quite cordial to each other when we see each other. That's about it. That's about the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, well, I think he's responsible directly and indirectly in many instances. I mean, look what he did for the American death metal scene when he signed Morbid Angel, for example. There's so many examples like that.
Well, I mean, the thing is, back in those early days, I think it might have been Mickey that was kind of pushing him to sign Morbid Angel because we were avid tape traders, especially when into called Nihilist. Bill Steer was probably pushing the envelope there, and stuff. But things changed. The whole scene changed when One Ounce of Madness came out, for sure. So. He was responsible for things like that. And of course, you have to remember that. And of course, businesses are a pain in the ass. Whether you want to change or not, when things go from that small underground stage to the money being involved, it can become quite ugly. And you have to check yourself. I think sometimes to not get caught up in the whole process of it being about more than about just the music, really. But scene wise, he helped push the music forward for sure. And he was a big help to Napalm in those early years, acting almost like a kind of caretaker manager of us. There was things that happened that just came through to us. A lot of press, a lot of the BBC arena stuff. They contacted Earache, and it was Napalm that he wanted to be the flagship for Earache, I suppose, at one point. So. 35 years later, I'm like, well, good luck to him, really.
Yeah, he certainly made a mark in a positive sense. And I've just had so many conversations with musicians, some of it off the record, some of it on the record, like with Mortis. He's out there with what his experiences were like. But he's dealing with musicians to your exact point there. And God knows I've been in enough band to know how bloody difficult dealing with musicians can be at the best of times.
I think I don't know, man. I mean, it's very tricky. I think it'd be easy for me to say, well, blah blah this, blah blah that, but I also look at things differently from different angles, and I know possibly how demanding one of our old managers might have been on him, and how we were individually, expecting, and perhaps bands expect and. Sometimes you think you deserve. Well, yes or no. I don't know. It's tricky. Mm-hmm. So I think after such a lot, the important thing I think is his label's moved on. They do what they do. We're doing what we do, and we're coexisting. All right. So let's leave it at that, mate. That's good.
Yep. I'm hearing you. Yeah. You mentioned Bill in there too, and I've had a couple of conversations. Bill Steer, sorry, that is, and. Could you tell even back on the Scum days, obviously a very innovative guitarist, it goes without saying, but he practically certainly popularised. He might not have been the inventor, okay, but I think he's got some responsibility in the invention, certainly in that new wave of British heavy metal infused death metal sound that came about through Carcass, but also through that gore grind sound that absolutely was pioneered through Scum. Did you look at him as a bit of an innovator back in those days, though? Like, could you tell he was the guitarist of the caliber that he is back then, or was he just another bloke in the band? Yeah.
No, I knew Bill before he joined Napalm, because the tale is, it's not a tale, the story is this. There used to be a magazine called Metal Forces back in the day, and they had a thing called Pen Bangers section in the back. Me and my friend Mitch Dickinson were like avid metal fans, and we knew there was this whole scene of stuff we hadn't discovered. And we came across some addresses. There was Ken Owen's address, there was Bill Owen's address, and Bill Steer's address, and a couple others. And so we wrote to them. We had a band called Warhammer. After his band, Bill was into Warhammer. He played in a band called Disattack, kind of dischargey kind of band. But already he was 15, already a shredder. You know what I mean? Pretty much. Already playing killer stuff. He loved all that stuff. He introduced us. We met each other at the Exodus gig. We played with them in '85. So I knew him for a good 2 years before he joined Napalm, I mean, Napalm didn't really showcase his talents at all in some respects, even though he loved that kind of stuff. I think it's, obviously Carcass invented, I guess, the gore grind sound, based on, we were all into Repulsion and Autopsy and stuff like that. But I think as Carcass went on, they decided, they made a conscious effort to go, well, especially Bill, I also love heavy metal or Racer X or whatever else. He loved Racer X back in the day, stuff like that. And they integrated it into the band, which I think is a smart, heartfelt move, So, yeah, Bill was always a killer guitarist, and we've known each other a long time, meaning. So I'm happy that Carcass have, doing what they're doing well and stuff. So he's always a great guitar, always a great guitarist, I felt.
Somebody else that I really haven't seen you be asked about is Kevin Sharp, but I mean, he's been around as long as anybody as well. Different scene being in New York there, but what are your most prominent memories of working with him?
Got millions of memories. We became friends in '89 on the Grand Crusher tour when there was Bolt Throw, Morbid Angel, Carcass, and us. In New York, we used to hang out a lot. But lots of memories. Kevin's been around for a long time, not just in bands, but also, he was part of the whole Relativity label when Combat signed Earache for the States, and he was, multiverse musically, I guess, and stuff, and he's toned down over the years, like we all have, but. I know we did it. I don't know. I love we did some Venomous concert recordings once when he just drank this big 2-liter bottle of wine, and that was funny. Yeah, he always has this kind of like thing where he likes to have. Apes always have a prominent thing in his artwork.
Yeah,
and I think he has it's his missing link, So when he drank this wine, it was fucking raging in a good way, But I love Kevin. We're brothers, to be honest, really, and we've had lots of good times together. And he's just he's a good, down to earth guy and knowledgeable. I've known him for over 30 years. We bonded over great New York pizza. That's how we first met, and took it from there, really. Yeah.
The thing with you, though, it's almost easy to list the people at this point, prominent people I'm talking about too, that you haven't worked with. I mean, you've worked with Pete Tagfer and you've worked with so many of these people that are the leading lights of the genre, and you've been the bass player for so many killer albums as well. Is there anybody still on the bucket list that you'd like to work with?
Well, yeah, there is. I mean, I'm always hassling Patton from Faith No More. Always hassling him, but
nice.
I think he always kind of politely turns me down in a way. He's a good old boy, Mike. But it's I don't know. He put me on the spot a little bit. God, if I was to say anything, I mean, it would never happen in a million years. But I'd love to work with Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson or Rush. That's what I'd like to work with. It'd probably never happen in a million years, but there you go. That's it there.
Stranger things, mate.
It's there now, because I love Rush. I'm a massive Rush fan. And I kind of like always like the fact that they kind of push. Each album was always a little bit different, and they always tried to surprise, So that would be something interesting to do for me personally.
Yeah. Do you have a favourite album that you've worked on?
Wow, God, it's I did like with outside of Napalm, probably the Tronos album, Celestial Mechanics, which I did. It took ages for us to do that because that was kind of like we didn't know what we were doing, where it was going to go, I guess. And then I started singing on the record. I never planned on singing, and Dirk played drums. Dirk who plays Megadeth now, and I think all these people just just jumped in and wanted to be part of the process, so I never expected. Billy from Faith No More said, I'll play bass on a couple of tracks, and Troy from Mastodon. And I didn't expect these people to sort of just want to do it. They're friends of mine. I look up to them. I admire them as musicians. And I was like, wow, well, lucky I am to be able to have cool friends who want to jump in and help me do this record. So that was a quite a good experience to do, and yeah, that was probably one of my favorites. I mean, Napalm, I enjoyed doing the last record. It was a lot of fun. I mean, unfortunately, Mitch wasn't really around that much. He moved back to the States, and so it was me and Danny kind of like laying the groundwork musically, and John was coming in with Russ, who's worked with us forever, and that's what I love creating. So I'm looking forward to doing the next one, just to go in there almost. I have ideas of what I want to do, but also I have the idea of not knowing what to do, see what happens. Because it's as opposed to like I'm not. In the 90s, we used to spend months and months rehearsing, which was totally fine and cool. We'd rehearse during the day and go for some beers in the evening. That was the ritual, that me, Mitch and Jesse would. And you go to record the record, and then poor old Danny sometimes would get a bit nervous and he'd forget his parts. So I'm like, well, maybe let's just see what happens when we go in the studio and press record. That'd be more interesting, more fun, things like that, which is kind of how we used to do it back in the day anyway. Who knows what was going to come out,
What about the bass guitar? I know that's the instrument you're most closely associated with, of course, but you're actually a multi-instrumentalist. You can drum, you can play guitar, and to your point, you can sing vocals too. How crucial do you think the bass has been to your creativity, though?
I think what's interesting with it, when I was writing in the early days of Napalm, the songs were a bit more, simpler, I guess, but you would write them on the bass, and that was interesting because I didn't have an amp. I was just sit in my mum's bedroom, the bedroom of my mum's house, and go, you imagined in your head what you thought this would sound like, and of course when the guitar plugged in, of course that's a different tone. You don't understand what these tones are really back then. You just know, it sounds okay. You're hoping those notes that you're choosing, not from, because I'm not musically trained, so you're hoping these notes have the right degree of savagery or darkness to them, and they do, and they did. So that was interesting with the bass, and I think, I originally got asked to play guitar for Napalm, and then kind of didn't do that and joined eventually on bass. So, I've slowly, I hope, got better on the bass guitar, and it's only probably the past 10 years or so that I've really understood what a bass, in my opinion, should do, which is to provide that backbone, that kind of that body, that warmth, but also sound-wise, it's quite unconventional because it's mixed with the high-end distortion, And I play a little bit different. I play down the neck. So I didn't realize this. John told me. So I'm playing like here, and I'm not by the pickups at all. I'm up here, which is a weird way of doing it, I suppose, And I guess that helps the sound. But it's a journey doing it. It's a journey that you do, and I wanted to be a guitarist, but at the time I almost had to watch other people to see what they were doing to go, okay, that's how you do it, And yeah, it's great to be able to play a bit of guitar, do vocals. I now do this kind of weird synth stuff that I like to do, So it can only be a good thing for someone like me who likes to create all the time,
Absolutely, yeah. It does hint at something else, though. You talked about family up top. How do you find you can balance everything out these days? I assume your kids are young like what mine are. I just find that I get to about 8, 9 o'clock at night and I'm just exhausted after the working day and family stuff. So how do you maintain your creativity around that?
Well, I've managed to put out some records and do stuff quite a lot. My wife's very understanding, to be fair, she is. And my son's going to be starting school properly, I guess. So he's nearly 5. My daughter's nearly 10. She's developed. She's obviously a lot easier in some respects. But you do find by 9 o'clock you're knackered, But I think once my son starts in September, it's going to be good for me to come down here around about 9 and make music. Or you have to do your emails. Sometimes, as you know, it's like you can such bombardment to try and get it all done. You're like, what the hell? Your brain's fractured totally. But I've noticed that my family are away right now. It's incredibly quiet at home, and I thought I was looking forward to it, and I'm enjoying it in some respects. I've had some horror film binges and stayed up having a few packet of biscuits, which I should have done, that kind of vibe. And but at the same time, I'm like, where are they? They're not here. They're missing them a little bit, and a lot really, and it makes you realise, that you need. It's nice to have that balance, otherwise, being creative is a thing where you have to come away from it sometimes. Like you can sit there 12 hours making some music, and sometimes it's not going to turn out any better. You have to walk away. So having that family, that balance to go to, and bring you back down to the reality a little bit is good. But it can be hard to find the time. That's for sure.
Yeah. Only a parent will understand this question, but have you gotten on top of the iPad thing yet, or is that still the eternal battle?
It's hard. Yeah, it's difficult. My wife's very good with it. I mean, they watch a lot of Japanese stuff too. But my son my son has a little bit of eczema, so I find it distracts him a bit. Then of course the wife's like going, "You can't let him watch too much bloody iPad." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not really doing it for that. I get what you're saying, but then you got to watch what's on there. That's what's coming through. And, you get into YouTube and it's just like it's the eternal. It's like you're clicking on one thing and then what the bloody hell is that that's coming through? And boom, stop that, because it's just getting the parental controls on there, and it can become. It's like addictive, isn't it? You didn't really have that at all, of course, growing up. Luckily, my daughter's reading a lot, which is good. Because I think it's too easy to jump on that stuff now and just be. We all do it. You can just you go on your phone, and next thing you know, you put in you're looking for one thing, and then 15, 20 minutes later, you're off.
Yeah, it's horrible. I know.
Down the yellow brick road of God knows what. And you're like, what am I looking at here? It's wasting my time. You forgot what you actually jumped on the phone for in the first place. It's trying to separate yourself from that and try to get yourself back to real life in some respects, I guess. But it's difficult.
Yeah. It doesn't matter which country you're in. I've spoken to everybody I've spoken to across the globe that's got kids our kids' age, from Iceland to the United States to Britain and Australia. We're all dealing with the same shit, and these psychos that develop the algorithms in these, especially these YouTube things and stuff, because that's the thing that they always want to go to, isn't it? To your point, there's been some disgusting things. As someone who grew up with satanic death and black metal, mate, I mean, that's one thing, but when you get all of this fucking hyper-sexualized material aimed at girls, it's really evil.
It's very weird, and it's some stuff just seeps in subtly. You're like, what the hell is that? And you do it. It's a fucking. This a strange world. It always has been a strange world, but the power of technology is going to test people's resilience a lot, I think, in some respect.
Have you, particularly your daughter, is she aware that her dad's pretty much globally famous? People are globally aware of the work that you do?
She knows, but she appeared. She did some vocals. She sang on the new Venomous concept album. That's my daughter on the beginning of the record. She did that. But she kind of she juggles with it. I mean, my wife likes to remind me that because you can be, especially when you do interviews a lot. Sometimes you come out of them and you think you're in interview mode still. And my wife will definitely tell me, "You're not doing a bloody interview now." And I'm like, "That's right." So it brings you back down to earth. But my daughter's aware of it, and it's interesting with the synth stuff, or whatever you want to call it, these weird sounds. My son is into that, but I'm not trying to push them in any direction, because I'm more interested in just see how they go, and how they live their life. But yeah, she does. She saw us play a show a few years ago. Played at a very strange festival in the south of England. It's called Camp Festival, so it's kind of more of a poppy indie festival, but it's more aimed at families. So all families go. It's very weird. There's massive bouncy castles and all this kind of stuff everywhere. So we played that, and she came down, and the family was there. And So that was good to see her to watch Bush's live. But lately, I don't think she's really been bothered lately. She's changing. They change all the time, don't they? Yeah. And
yeah.
But I could see, she musically she likes all kinds of different stuff, and it's different when she's with her mom. She's different to me. When she's with me, she's a bit more crazy when she's with me. Both my kids tend to go a bit wilder when it's just the three of us. The wife's the bump. Sit down and pay attention. I was a bit more like, let's go and watch Harry Potter 1 to 7.
Sounds like my household. Don't worry. I've tried to indoctrinate them with rugby league and music and stuff like that, and they're vaguely interested in rugby league. We go to the stadium, watch the Tigers play and stuff, but they in terms of the music and stuff, no, they're into. You know what they get into, mate? Probably like your daughter Jay and K-pop. That's the big thing now.
It's huge. Because she watches a lot of Japanese TV. She's like, she goes to Japanese school on a weekend in England. She's about an hour away. So she's great. They both speak fluent Japanese. She can write it, she can read it, and
oh wow, yeah.
And I know very little, and I note to myself to get my act together while they were away. I was like, right, I can sit down in my Rosetta Stone and try and get my brain together with this. So that's always a challenge. I know when they're talking about it. That's about it. And but she's got her own famous Japanese artists that she likes and stuff. But she's into art a lot, which is good. I like that. She's kind of really creative with that, and they both will be creative, but probably maybe not in the music thing. It might be something else. That's all good. It's really it's a bit of an honor to watch them grow. Really, see how they develop.
No, I agree. You're right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, you're right. It's a massive honor and it's a huge responsibility that we've got, isn't it?
Oh God, it's the gravity of it. Sometimes you're like, bloody hell, But then of course, like I say now, when they're not here, I'm like, wow, because I was itching. I'm happy to have the time, to sort of, just there with my cats, but I'm thinking. And then, of course, I FaceTime when they're both fighting with each other. And I'm like, there's the noise I recognise. You know what I mean? There's the sound of the disagreements. She's taking something off him. He's getting pissed off. Then you miss it, really. So it's a good thing. It's good. My wife's father was from Croatia, and he worked in the mines when he came to Australia, and he really never learned how to speak English in a conversational way. He had basics, sure, but in the household he would do this thing where he'd speak Croatian, and my wife and the kids in the household would respond in English. So they'd have this conversation with two different languages. Does that happen with your wife and the kids yet? She speaks in Japanese to the kids. They answer back, and I think. In the early years, I didn't really think about it. Lately, there was a brief period I was like, it was kind of wobbling me a little bit. I'm like, what am I getting wobbled here for? So it's because you can't bloody understand it. That's why get off your ass and start, getting your shit together. Which I did when I first met my wife. We moved to Japan, and I thought I was going to move to Japan, and then because my wife grew up in the States, she speaks English really well. So it was like. When I was going there all the time, everything was making sense, and she decided she wanted to move to England, and we both became kind of, well, she's not lazy, but you talk English, and of course the kids came along, and understandably culturally, she's making sure they know about her culture. But as things are moving with me, I'm really going to sort of buckle down, and I can understand the gist, but it's I need to do better. But yeah, that's how it goes, really, and sometimes like trying to decipher what's going on because she'll be giving up, she'll be bollocking my daughter, and I'm like, well, that's cool, well, not cool, but we need to deject here together, to see what's going on, with that kind of vibe. So that's it adds to the extra chaos which is parenting, I think, probably. But my cats understand Japanese more than me, probably. But there you go.
One thing you can tell your daughter that she would understand is that you had the president, I think it's a president of Indonesia, not prime minister or president, either way, but huge fan of Napalm Death. Is that one of the more unusual things to happen to the band?
It's definitely strange, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think he was, I believe, he's a metal fan. I've seen him with an Napalm shirt on, which is
Yeah, there's a few pictures out
certainly
there.
quite a trip. Certainly quite a trip in that instance, you know. And I guess I think we might be going to Indonesia in December. We haven't been there for a long time, but you do come across, you know, in certain countries, obviously, politicians or, you know, mayors that tend to be. We've played festivals where the local mayor is a mad Napalm fan, you know, and made sure that gig happened for particular reasons. He almost wants to bring the band over. So it's strange coincidences in some ways, and it makes sense, you know, especially with the younger. You know, you always look at politicians as being these aged, kind of not with it people, I suppose, you know, in a way. But you know, it's a touchy subject, politics, at the best of times. But I think it could be a good thing for some to hopefully have some influence from more subversive influences. You know, I guess. You know.
Barney's really on the front foot about his views on politics, and I know you've politely declined, I think, in many instances to have conversations around it. Is it just that it's his thing and you're happy to let him to be the spokesperson on it, or do you have your views too and you prefer to keep them private?
It is really Barney's thing is the wrong way to say it, but it kind of is. Napalm is, of course, Napalm steeped in that anarcho punk rock history. And my views, I don't know. I was thinking about actually this morning. How I would answer it really, but it's. I think it's impossible for me to really answer on the state of the world or what is done, and it's always been a moving force of many things, and I just don't think I have any answers, or maybe I do, but I don't wish them to be known in some ways, because it's I find it hard enough waking up in the morning sometimes and getting through that day, me personally, you know. I'm creative musically, and I try to express my things that way. And of course, things come in from Barney's world, or a more ethical, political, whatever kind of stance, which would have bearing on me. But I would express that musically as opposed to lyrically, probably. When I write lyrics, my lyrics tend to talk about deeper things that are personal to me, I suppose. And I'm happy with Barn to just let him, you know, do his thing on that, really. Which frustrates him, I think, sometimes, honestly. Yeah, he wants me to speak out, and I'm like, well, I don't know what to say in some respects, you know. And in this day and age, not being afraid of what to say, so I just think, I don't know. I keep my thoughts are my thoughts on certain things, you know. It's hard to keep anything private nowadays, possibly. So,
especially when you're doing lots of interviews like this, to your point, because what happens is, because you're not known for your political statements, if you say one thing, that'll be the statement that's picked up on Ultimate Guitar and Decibel or Metal Injection and Blabbermouth, and that's what they'll run with. Because I've had this conversation a lot with people who listen to my show, that, you know, these Blabbermouths and stuff, they ply and trade is hits and clicks because they want the advertising revenue, and they use your quote as the bait. Okay. And we're finding this, I mean, it's been like this now for 20 or so odd years, but people don't seem to be or fans more specifically, don't seem to be as aware of it. And I'm always really careful about, I'm happy to make my own statements, but especially the sort of questions that I ask around that, because I get what Borry and what Blabbermouth and the Metal Injections and what they do and what they're all about. And they're not about hardcore journalism, unfortunately. They pick up on whatever Dave Mustaine said about an air steward or whatever. Not that he said anything, by the way, but you know what I mean, like where he's headed. So.
Yeah, well, yeah. I do see that. You know, I see like through the social media that so and so said this today, and I'm like, well, you know, and I realise that is kind of how it moves. I mean, I do a lot of stuff on Instagram for whatever reasons, really. Sometimes I just do it because I feel like connecting. You know. But yeah, when it comes to like the state of the world and stuff, I'm like, well, not as much the state of the world or what's happening with Russia and the Ukraine. I tend to not really get into that, because sometimes the answer is obvious. It should be obvious. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. in this day and age, and it will become even harder to hold on to what's inside your head, possibly.
Yeah, a lot of the youth, though, mate, they're just not centrists. The thing about us, and when we grew up, you could, in the same family, you'd have conservatives and Labor voters, and that's certainly true of mine. And within your friendship circles, you have the same. Certainly, musicians. Musicians are like most are hardcore sort of lefties, or at least have that bent toward that way. But I just find these days too that everything's so tribal, and particularly on the left, it's so ideologically motivated that you're almost not allowed, or it's frowned upon to express yourself, and that's the big issue. And I know you guys have sung about this, or certainly Barney's lyrics, and probably your lyrics too, but the censorship side of things. But we're in an era where censorship is okay, where it's cool, where it's not fuck you, don't do what I'm not going to do what you tell me. It's fuck you, do what the government tells you, and it's such an odd place for us to be at.
Yeah, and I think it'll probably get worse, unfortunately, and whatever that worse may be. It's I know it's I see it's interesting points of literature written so long ago that we seem to be entering into what was predicted by just fiction writers in some respects. I find.
George Orwell's 1984. Yeah, have you read that recently? Have you reread it? Or I'd say you probably read it at school. But yeah.
And I remember seeing a T-shirt. Someone was saying, "What was it?" I can't remember. It was 1984 was a book, not a manuscript or something. I don't know, something for like I don't know, almost like a doctrine for the future. And I don't know. Yeah, it's very bizarre times, And but even prior to that, I'm always it's creativity and how I take what's going on to push it into my music, really, myself. And that's key for me, and what works for me doesn't always work for somebody else, and that's that, really. And it's very interesting. Again, going back to kids, when they ask you questions, that's always the thing. I thought, what about this, Dad? And you go, interesting. And I live an alternative life, I suppose, in some respects, whatever you call that. And my wife's Japanese, culturally different from England, even though there's many cultures in England. But there's a lot of racism, as it is everywhere here. And she experienced, where the Napalm death house is in a very big Muslim area. But as a young Japanese girl, when she first came over, there was quite a lot of tension, which I never would have experienced, never thought. And then you look at things from which we always try to look at different angles from different points of view. And so when my children ask me questions, it's very hard to work out what to answer on things, it's difficult. I always like, just give me the guitar and let me play some music, that's so fine for me, really. Yeah.
I know what you're saying, though, yeah, because especially I've got a 10-year-old too, I might have mentioned, and 10 and 8 of mine, and the 10-year-old in particular asks a lot of questions about these things, and the reason that they ask these questions is because they're watching a YouTube clip, to our earlier point, and this subject matter about trans lives matter or whatever it will be will come up, and in order to have conversations with them about it, you've actually got to be informed. You can't just make up your answer, because then they go out to the real world with those things, because they have their own conversations at school and the like. So you want to arm them with enough information to be sufficiently informed for their intellect at their level of maturity. But at the same time, you want to protect them enough so as though they're not exposed to this stuff too early.
Yeah. It's the gravity of being a parent, for sure, is daunting, but that's what you are. You it's to be responsible for your kids. So
yeah, indeed, yeah. I'll if I've got time for one more question, I've got a good one for you as the last one. Is that cool?
Cool, yeah.
What do you hope the future holds? Keyword there being hope.
Depending. You look at hope. Some people say if you look at it in Jungian psychology terms, hope was the last great evil out of Pandora's box. How about that one for you? But we won't go there too much. For me, it's been, like I said, like many people, I've had a bit of a rough few years. Probably a lot of it's self-induced, and I'm happy to be creating music and to grow with my family. Really, that's what's important to me at the moment, more than ever, I think, and trying to find balance with a good home life versus still doing what I want to do, which I've always done. Really, I guess that's the future that I'm thinking of. Really. And you take it day by day. That's all you can do. Past is the past. Future's not here yet. They say you got to live in the moment, and that's the tricky part: living in the moment. You start worrying about what's coming around the corner. Well, you don't think you can do that, really. You never know. Well, we might not wake up tomorrow. If that's the answer, that's all I can give you, I guess.
No, it's a good one. Yeah, I just remember as a young fellow listening to your albums and the Morbid Angel albums, and just it never crossed my mind that I'd be having these conversations later on in my own life, yet alone that you as the musicians would be approaching, and in some instances well into middle age, playing extreme metal at the same intensity and extremity as what you did say in some instances for you, it's 40 years ago when you started. Can you believe that?
It's pretty nutty. Yeah, it's pretty crazy because in my head, you feel in essence almost the same, but of course the vehicle, your body, which you're in, has a few more croaks and creaks, and some days you go, God, where's that pain come from? And as soon as bloody winter hits here in England, you're like, oh yeah, here we go. The familiarity of whatever the hell it is, and then seeping through your veins, yeah, it's. I hadn't played shows for a while. Took a break, and I did a show with Lockup, one of my other bands in Denmark a few years ago, and that was a lot of fun. It was. We have two vocalists live now. We have like Kevin Sharp and Thomas from Napalm. So that was a lot of fun. It was. We hadn't played for ages, and Adam, who's playing drums, was now from Pig Destroyer, new drummer. He's a great drummer, and it was just it was great to be doing it again, for me. And you wake up and you go, wow, it's like I was 19 years old and I joined Napalm Death. I'm 55. That's pretty nuts, really, when you think about it. It goes by like that. It just goes by like that. Yeah,
it does. You snap your fingers, mate, don't you? I still feel like I'm in my late 20s, but I'm not. And especially for you guys, you got such resounding success for what you're doing. Let's face it, what you're doing. I mean, who would have thought that all those years ago? Of course, the word career, and I remember Barney was really insistent that he didn't look at the band as having a career. It was something else that I can't remember the way he framed it, but he took not exception, but he was insistent that he did not refer to what he was doing with the band as a career. But, for all intents and purposes, that's what it resembles, isn't it? I mean, it's been your life's work.
Yeah, exactly. It does resemble a career. You look at it differently in some respects, and you wrestle with those kind of similarities, I guess, in some ways, because I have to explain to my wife sometimes, when she always likes to do this, when you're in your creating mode, and I'm like, well, that's what I do. Because I love doing it. It's like a hobby. It's my job, but I don't look at it as a job. But it's my hobby. It's what I love to do. And then you start doing these things. That's where sometimes record labels can take advantage and do, because when you start playing music, you're from the heart. You're not even thinking about a pound or the dollar or whatever. And then you start, if you have some success, you start making money from it. It depends how you balance that with your head, really. It's like, we need to live. Money is energy, but we also, for me, I like to think that the music we make is genuine and it's and it's creatively inspiring, not just put out crap, So there's a process there, but it isn't a career, but it as you say, it resembles one completely, and it's like, what else will I do? Oh, I don't have a fucking clue what else I was going to do, to be fair, and that is that, really. So I feel quite blessed, I think, really, to be doing this.
Were your parents really supportive of you back in those days? Because 19 is still very young.
Yeah, my mom was really, really supportive. My dad was like, he had his visions. He was an army guy, even though he only played in the bloody military brass band. I used to like joke at him. I says, he's a a great trumpet player, amazing. But and I guess that's probably where some sort of musical DNA comes from. But when the band became known, I guess, and stuff, he became. Well, he was always proud, I guess, but it was like it was almost like because I think that classic thing where he struggled. He found it hard to be a dad in his 70s. He was young, and I know now I have my kids. I know it's very tough for you because you really have to be selfless and you have to put them first, and you wrestle with that sometimes. Everyone wants to sit on the couch doing whatever they want, but you can't always do that. But they were supportive. My mum especially, she played a lot of music, and they used to come to shows, which is a trip. They would come and see us. I think that was important for me. Yeah, they let me have a drum kit behind the sofa in the living room. Just to beat a drum kit and piss the neighbours off, and then if the neighbours came around and complained, my mum would just politely tell them where to go, which is quite funny.
Young fella having fun. Well, that's great. God, my mum used to tell me to shut up all the time with my basses and guitars and stuff. But it's nice that you got that support, that fostering. That's what it is, that fostering environment.
She was pretty good at that. I mean, this is a tale like this in the book that I got coming out in October, I guess. But
oh yes,
I remember. I came back from school once, and this Italian band called Bulldozer were put this record. I think it was the second album. I'm like, what the hell is it? How is that playing? Why is that playing? I've just come back from school, and my mum's like doing some cleaning upstairs. I'm like, did you put this record on? She's like, well, yeah. So why did you put this record on? Because next door neighbours, she had friends with the one side, but she hated the other guys, and she pretty loud. I'm like, so you put this on to piss your neighbours off? Yeah, really? I was just randomly put this one on. She's like, I quite like this one. I was like, you're bullshitting me. You're trying to tell me that from downstairs in the kitchen, you picked this one, you like this one, you heard me playing it, but you like this one. I'm like, I don't know if I quite believe that, but I like the idea that she was annoyed with the neighbours and decided to put something on to give them a hard time. But she was supportive a lot of that. I think even she can't. I don't think she understand it, but she did support it. She very defensive of people who are alternative looking, and I think that's nice. To have that, I guess.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, it's lovely. Did you grow up? Are you Protestant or Catholic background?
Christian, I guess, but we weren't really religious as such. They went to church and they felt like it, I guess. And of course, I discovered Venom. When I discovered Venom, it was like that. Thank you very much. That's all out the door. I dutifully carved my inverted cross at woodwork at school, and that was it. It was all game from then on. Game change that. But yeah, mate, that was brilliant.
Yeah. Well, this has been a fantastic chat. It's great to finally catch up with you after all of these years. I listen from afar and have this wonderful thing these days where I get to talk to so many of you, such as, yourself, Barney, Bill and Carl and all these legends of British grind. And, I said something similar to Barker as well. It's really important what you've done throughout the years. It's been more than an accompaniment. The young fellow like me in a boarding school, it was a friend listening to your music, that, and late at night, and I'd listen to this stuff, and I always used to have these visions in my head about actually watching a lot of the shows and just, where you guys lived in far-flung England from Australia, and
Yeah, I mean that's what it's connection. It's when you're connected to music and I did this always the same thing. We used to. I remember a small village. I used to walk around. Me and my friends would walk around discussing our lighting show we were going to have, or whatever band we were thinking about. It's like it's going to be like this, and there's going to be this explosion. And we never did that particular band, but yeah, that's great. It's just escapism, but in a good way. You know, you're being creative even in your escapism, and it's yeah. I mean, that's good. And then sometimes you get the chance to go on stage, and it's just like, yeah, you go, oh well, that's interesting. And I'm sort of living the dream, I suppose. And so it's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Well, I hope the trip's not too punishing and not a bloody long flight down. I suppose you're flying into Perth first and then jumping across to Melbourne or Sydney, but hope that's not too punishing.
I'm going to probably pop over to Japan prior quickly if I can.
Oh, and, okay. There you go.
See the family before I go down, because I won't see them for a while, which I haven't been to Japan for a long time either, so that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Trying to take my son to see the 70-foot Gundam robot, which I've been seeing on YouTube.
Right.
It's pretty insane. He'll probably blow his mind. Life-size giant. Only in Japan, life-size giant robot. But there you go. Something to do. But yeah, thank you, mate. Brilliant. Cheers.
Absolutely, mate. All right. Well, I'll be in the audience anyway too, mate. So thanks very much, man, and chat to you again, hopefully.
Cheers, mate. Take care. Thank you. Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Well, there you have it, a conversation with the very legendary Shane Embury from Napalm Death. I really enjoyed that one there. It was fascinating to get his insight and have that conversation in regards to family and work-life balance. Just goes to show we're all people. No matter what you're doing with your life, if you've got a family, there's only degrees of separation there insofar as what we're managing and how we manage it, and it was great to get Shane's insight on that topic, in addition to so many other subjects related to his very long and storied career in extreme metal. So, if you like that chat, there are a few more, many more as a matter of fact, just like it over at scarsandguitars.com. And if you like listening, perhaps you like reading, I've written a book. I'm partway through my next one as well, but my first edition that I released at, was it February? Yes, it was my marriage anniversary, the 20th of February 2022, the book was released. So it's been out for well over a year now. Almost a year and a half, yeah. Check it out, because it goes into some detail. It expands on my thoughts and feelings toward many of the conversations that I've had for the Scars and Guitars podcast. You can always download a sample, and if you like it, and complete the purchase, just hit me up, because I want to thank you personally, and so many of you have already done that, and I genuinely appreciate it. Well, that's it from me. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith. There's a bit more information to share with you about the book in the moment, but for now I'll bid you a fond farewell. Adios.
This is Eric Rattan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew Mackay-Smith.
I've been the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast since 2017. The first musician I interviewed for the show was David Vincent from Morbid Angel, and things have just snowballed from there. In all, I've posted almost 650 podcast episodes featuring conversations with many of the leading lights of rock, heavy metal, and beyond. It just got to a point where I thought, I need to write a book about all this, so that's exactly what I did. In Scars and Guitars Volume 1, you'll read a heap of deep reveals and commentary, such as Des Fafara talking about Coal Chamber and why the band will never return.
If you're a band just starting out, you need to hear me. Do not start a band with partners. Ever.
Yeah, wise words there. Sage advice, mate, for anybody.
Don't ever, because I can't go do Coal Chamber right now unless I get others involved.
Phil Anselmo talks about the episode in his career which gives him the greatest sense of accomplishment.
I think the staying power of the fans and the staying power of the songs, whether it's Pantera, Down, or Superjoint, the fans remember the songs.
Alex Skolnick from Testament confirms that, yes, playing the guitar in Ozzy's band is anything but an ordinary gig. Will Silent Oz from Dimmu Borgir write a book? Pa from Sabaton gives advice to people who want to start a band.
Look at the team around you, look at the bandmates. If the guys want to be on the stage, then it's all cool. If the guys want to be backstage, then it's not going to be cool.
Current and former members of Cradle of Filth discuss the band's seminal 90s material. Read about the reaction to George Lynch and Mark from Suicide Silence's comments when they throw shade at then President Donald Trump.
We have this idiotic monster, this egotistical, self-aggrandizing complete piece of shit in there. I just can't understand how we've gotten to this place.
And yeah, we kicked a hornet's nest with Sepultura. Percussive overlord Gene Hoglan talks about recording with Chuck Schuldiner.
Chuck was always, he was very, very open-minded, and he was into having his musicians that were playing with him just reach out for the best stuff that they had.
Phil Campbell from Motorhead discusses what it takes to get sober. John Five answers his critics who dismiss his tenure with Marilyn Manson.
My name is John Five, and Manson gave me that name, and I had some of the best years of my life in that band and learned a lot.
And we get the lowdown on Treyarch Zagtoth from those who would know, including his mother. All across Scars and Guitars Volume 1, there are moments of tension, relief, tragedy, exhilaration, and throughout it all, you'll obtain insight that I believe no one else has managed to obtain from many of your favourite artists. So treat yourself. Scars and Guitars Volume 1 is currently available as an ebook with a print edition on the horizon. Follow the links attached and download a sample. I'm sure you'll be compelled to read the whole book.